Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We got a pretty cool one here for you. This old Wittnauer, it's a non-runner. The dial was slightly off to the side and the hands were on it when I got it. I messed with it a little bit off camera, but we'll get in here and check it out. So it's got some service marks on the inside of it. Let's see if it'll take a wind. So it does seem like it's taking a wind, but it is not wanting to kick up. Okay, so we'll see what that's about later on. Alright, so we'll go ahead and get this automatic works off of here. We'll start by taking this center screw out to get the hold down for the rotor. These can be pretty tricky sometimes, but we got it. Now, as much as this just sits down in there, it's got to mesh with several gears, so it's kind of hard to pull out, but you do just pull it straight up. Now, the bridge for the automatic works has two screws, one on each side. Yeah, this movement is the Wittnauer 11 KAS. A cool thing about Wittnauer is it was originally a Swiss guy that imported them into the United States, and then it was bought by Belova, and then Belova was bought by Citizen. But I don't think they make any Wittnauer movements or watches nowadays. This movement and company also are intertwined with Longines a little. They got imported together by one company, and sometimes you'll see Longines, Wittnauer, like combination watches. And the movement in this watch, although it's not Longines, it shares a lot of parts and is quote unquote identical to the Longines 501. Now, here, when we get this movement decase, you'll see the first few parts we're going to replace. Now, these right here are the hold down clamps that were in there. Those aren't going back. I'm going to put some different ones in that match just because. Now, we'll get this dial off here and check this dial out. This dial has like perfect patina. You may not like it. I really do like patina dials. I know it's water damage, but it looks so cool. I would keep this watch if it didn't. It looks bad on my wrist, so I'm not gonna keep this one. And it's a perfect example of how well a watch can turn out because, as you'll see later in the video, this watch, it runs great. Had a few issues, and you'll see that on camera. So here we're gonna go ahead and get this thing moved in the movement holder and go ahead and start tearing it down. The first thing we want to do is get the balance out of here. This is probably one of the most fragile parts of the watch, of any watch, and you don't want to slip up and accidentally take the spring out. Now, if you notice, this one is running now. So when we took the automatic works off, it started to run. We also took the dial and hands off, so I'm not sure what's going on there, but maybe we'll find something, maybe it'll come out of it. Lost some footage there. We unwound the watch and took the ratchet wheel off and then started to take the crown wheel off. I was playing with camera angles in this and some of the stuff got deleted, so but back to it. So you always want to use these plastic sticks anytime you take any of these springs off. Later in the video, I also forget to do that and shoot one across the room. Next up, we're going to take the pallet fork out, and this is probably the second most fragile part in the watch. Those stones, if they have any damage or get moved or anything, like there's just a slight shellac holding those on, and they will move, so you got to be careful. They shouldn't move if the shellac's good, but I've had it happen, so I just do my best to take it out first. Taking the main bridge off. This is the seconds wheel. Well, that's the wheel that the seconds hand rides on. And then there's the escape wheel coming out, and then we've got the center wheel. This is a through wheel. this watch looks to be in pretty good shape internally. It's very, very clean. I know it's been serviced because it had several service marks in the case back. Get all these little tiny screws out of there. You always got to keep your tweezers sharp because you will not be able to pick those up. Setting lever spring. This spring here is the one that I forgot to use the black stick on, and that's later when we're putting it back together. I forgot to mention that I didn't use any reference at all when tearing this watch apart. I didn't sort the parts or screws. I just took it all the way apart, slapped it on the desk right next to me, and had at it. No pictures, nothing. Putting it back together. Actually, it wasn't that bad. Here, all these parts are going to go into the wire mesh basket. They'll get put into the the L&R cleaning machine with L&R cleaning solutions. 5 minutes per side. Except for the balance and pallet fork, they're going to get dipped in one dip here and agitated with air. They could probably be okay in the L&R cleaning solutions, but I just don't like to risk it because pallet forks are expensive. So once you let these soak for not very long, get them clean, let them dry, the one dip will evaporate and it will have taken all the oils off of the parts, and once it evaporates, it leaves no residue. There's the center wheel going in, and this is after everything's been clean. This is clean and dry. This actually is several days later. I took it apart and cleaned it, and it sat on my desk for about a week before I did anything with it. I'm just checking this here. I dropped a little bit of oil on there, but I didn't have much left. We'll get that later on. So while we're putting these gears in, I like to check to make sure that everything's still rotating freely. And as I go through, you'll see me do that. I tighten screws down and check. I'll check it, or I won't tighten them down all the way. I'll check it, and then I'll tighten them down all the way, and then I'll check it again. And it's just easier that way than to break these pivots off. Which I'm not even going to say that because then I'll start doing it. But those pivots are pretty easy to break. It does happen. And you start to feel like whenever you're tightening, you can tell it's not right. You get a screw started and you get to a point you're like, something feels wrong before you tighten it. And most time it's one of those pivots isn't correctly lined up. As you can see, there's not a lot of scratching or marks. The movement here has got a few there at the bottom, but pretty happy with it all together. One difference between this and the Longines that I did, these bushings on the left and right side, those are actually sapphire rubies or whatever. Just like the jewels for the pivots in the reversing wheel side too. And I have one of those bridges, and I'm thinking about swapping it just so I have the extra rubies. But I mean, do the jewels really matter there? Also, it would have more jewels in it than like originally designed. So I don't know, but just a cool thought. So the Longines is slightly better. Here I'm blowing air just to make sure, and your train of wheels should move with blow through an air blower, just like that. This is a quote-unquote non-serviceable mainspring going in. Okay, so here are these two wheels. I didn't know which one went here, so I'll show you how I figured it out. And what I did was I put the smaller wheel in first, which is kind of tricky because it's got to go below the bridge above the gear and on that shaft. And once I had the gear seated, I put the reversing wheel in. Now, in hindsight, you can tell that gear doesn't look right, but the reversing wheel isn't meshing with that wheel. So this wheel is the one for the front. So we'll take that off and we'll put the correct one back and check and see how it goes. Below the bridge, above the gear, on the shaft. Put the reversing wheel in and see if it meshes. Okay, so clearly that's the correct gear. Good to know. Drop a little bit of oil on there. Put the barrel bridge in. You know, although that reversing wheels were jeweled, I don't think the barrel bridge was jeweled on the Longines. I have seen jeweled barrel bridges before, but this one is not. It's pretty cool. You know, honestly, the barrel bridge I've seen quite a bit worn. I've had to repair several of them. Yeah, this one's in great shape, so there's no need. Let's get these screws in here for this barrel bridge. You know, some of these videos I took the screws part out. This one was short enough I left it in, but I prefer the shorter videos. I feel like an hour-long video is hard to give a commentary through. Yeah, it's hard to give a commentary at all anyway. I mean, I could sit here and tell you about all these parts, but if I did that every single video, they'd all be the same. So I try to give a little bit of history on the watches and maybe a little bit of story, which this one doesn't have. I mean, I just bought this one for parts, and it was nice on the inside, so I kept it to do a video on. And the watch I bought it for parts for was not, I didn't even use it. I had another movement that I used, so. Hey, you know, makes a good video, I guess. Now, the ending of this video would be where the good stuff's at, because I go through and show you all the regulation. I show how I adjust the beat error, and I show you an issue I ran across on my Timegrapher. And you'll definitely want to check out the end of the video to see how the watch turns out, because this thing turned out great. This is the click and click spring. Now, I fight this a little bit. I probably should have put the spring on first. I would recommend that. You put the spring on first and then the click on in there. So here we're going to get the ratchet wheel put on. But you guys know what all these parts are. You just want to see the watch torn apart. I could do that. I've got a few watches lined up. I may have the parts to fix the Omega I was working on too. I'll probably get back into that this week sometime. One of my personal watches is down currently. And you'll actually see it in the video in the background at one point. I had to order some parts for it. I was running fine, and all of a sudden it wasn't one day. I don't know. And when I tore it down, I found that the pivot on the escape wheel was worn slightly. That's the only real issue I found. It's really low on amplitude. We're gonna check that out and see. So these pallet fork stones look pretty straight. I'll go ahead and get that down in there. One thing you want to be careful about too, and I have done this before, is when you put this pallet fork in, that the stone doesn't sit on top of the escape wheel. Because if the stone sits on top of the escape wheel, when you put the bridge on, you're going to break it. Well, probably the stone. You're going to pull the stone out of the fork. I noticed this also while I was editing. I think that the screw I put into this bridge here for the pallet fork is the wrong screw. But I'm not really sure where it came from or where the screw for the pallet fork went. So I don't know. It works. It's holding it down. If I ever have any issues out of it, I guess I'll pull the other screw out of somewhere. I'll rewatch the video when I tear it down and see. But I don't think that's the screw that was in there. I've gotten pretty good at putting these balances in. This used to be a struggle. This was one of the harder things to do when I was learning. And I can pretty well just drop them right in nowadays. Check this out. I can do that fairly often. When I push this down, it stops, but that's okay. Now, this thing has a fair bit of amplitude without any oil on any of these jewels. And that's pretty cool. So everything seems to be healthy. And we'll get it on the Timegrapher here in a little bit, but what we're going to do first is pull these cap jewels out and oil them. Now, both of these are like the same procedure, so I'm only going to show one, but I have a bad habit of flinging these across the room, and you never find them. You'll never find them. This is the one part, there's 15 of them on my floor, and I've never found them. Every other part you can find because they're shiny. These, I have a black light too. They're not magnetic, so you can't pick them up with a magnet. You can't see them with a flashlight. The UV light's supposed to make them glow, but it only does if you're at the perfect angle. And I have a stash of spares, but sometimes like these watches use random sizes, so they're like in between sizes of what I have. I don't know. This is just dipped in one dip here, and I'm gonna clean this jewel off with the like a piece of wood. I think these are like, I don't even remember what type of wood they are. Low shear, like they don't leave anything on them. You want one solid drop in the center. That's probably just a little bit too much oil, but it'll be okay. Now we'll flip this over and you'll check it out, and you'll see the circle inside of the capstone, and that circle is where the oil is at. So if you didn't have a perfect circle there, the oil is not going to sit on the shaft and the balance, and it's either going to cause wear, it's definitely going to cause low amplitude and beat issues. The oiling of these is probably one of the more important things on most of these watches, because that's the freest flowing thing. That's also where the timekeeping is really coming from, the escapement. So you want to properly oil your escapement. This is the other side. Same sequence, same process, did all the exact same stuff. You'd be amazed at how small this is right here. It looks big on camera. That is microscopic. Okay, so the the lift angle on this movement is a 50 degrees. Now, most YouTubers you see don't change their beat error, but it really does make a difference when you're adjusting, your lift angle. It really does make a difference when you're adjusting for beat error. Okay, what is going on? So, I'm going to try and regulate this. There is a problem. Now, the problem you'll see later, but the Timegrapher is doing that on purpose for some reason, but you'll have to see what it is. So here we're going to go ahead and move this. So this arm here is what adjusts your beat error. So when you move that arm, and right now it's showing 0 beat error, but if you see the lines, that's more like out of bounds beat error. The beat error is so high it's not registering. okay, so I pulled up a reference to see one of these movements, and I'm going to adjust this stud carrier over into the position around where that one's at just to see what happens. Okay, so it got a little better, but it's still way off. I don't really know at this point when I'm messing with this. I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. I did end up figuring it out, but so right now it has no amplitude reading and no beat error, but it looks like the rate's okay. So what we ended up finding was with the movement and the movement holder, it would not get a correct reading on this Timegrapher. If I take that movement out of this Timegrapher right now, put it back in the movement holder and put it on the Timegrapher, it'll give me a funky reading. I don't know what that's about. I've seen other YouTubers do that. I've seen other people do that. Yeah, it doesn't work for me. I gotta have it down there on the mic. And I have the same Timegrapher, so I don't know. And also I used my other Timegrapher that I used to use, and it was doing the same thing. I don't know if this movement holder was squeezing something on this movement, but I looked, I didn't see anything. So, very weird. Either way. This wheel here is tapered. The tapered side goes down. This is backwards. It's pretty common in the channel. If you go back and watch a lot of my videos, I like to put this in there backwards. For some reason, I always think about it, and my gut feeling makes me put it backwards every time. I don't know. I don't figure it out until I go to put it back together, all the way back together, and I'm like, what is going on here? Maybe one of these screws in the front is the one that I stole for the pallet fork bridge. They all look the same though, so maybe not. And actually, you know what? I think it is, now that I'm thinking about it. So the button you press down to pull the crown out later on, this button here, there's a spring that holds that. And the spring has a screw there at the top right of the screen. It's not in there yet, but you'll see. And I think that I swapped those two screws out. I think that might be the issue. Because that screw I remember being relatively big. So there we go. Now that's all the correct direction. It's funny how I do that every single time. Every single watch, I put them in there backwards. This spring's also backwards. That is not, and it's gone. Okay, so I found that after about 15 minutes. And so this spring goes this direction. You always want to use these little plastic sticks, because if it flies off there, it'll just get stuck on the stick. So I like to press it down, make sure it's seated before I lift the stick up. That's not going anywhere. Alright, setting lever spring. You see these called a lot of different names. That's what I'm going to go with. I think the next part I put in is the one I was talking about. So it's got the one with the larger screw, and that larger screw I think is the one that goes to the pallet fork bridge. I think I have those two swapped. Let me know what you think. You probably just watched the video if you're at this point, and you know whether or not that's the screw that came out of there. I am not 100% certain. Can hear my stomach going though. Somebody say something. Somebody told me to eat a sandwich one time. All right, we got the dial back on. We're going to go ahead and get the hands on here. And I did actually go through and with a Q-tip and isopropyl alcohol, I cleaned these hands up. I didn't really like polish them. I just cleaned them a little bit because they were pretty oxidized. Oxidated is not a word, I don't think. Oh. Seconds hand on. And the same thing, I alcohol with a Q-tip to clean the, I haven't done it yet, that's actually on video, but I use that to clean the diamond. Speaking of the diamond, what do you guys think? You think this is a real diamond? I think I might have it tested just because I'm curious. I feel like this watch is old enough that it could be real. But also, I don't know, the case isn't like gold plated, so it'd be weird. Okay, so here's the old movement clamps, and I'm going to put one of these two sizes in there. So these reversing wheels were dipped in Mobius Lubetta, and I let them dry. What that does is it cleans them, and inside the cleaner there's a oil, and it's more like a wax than anything, to be honest. And then once the cleaner evaporates off of the parts, it leaves a slight film on the parts, and that film lubricates them. And like I said, it's kind of a waxy substance. It's pretty cool. Getting these last couple bridge bolts in, bridge screws in for the auto works. And then we'll test it and make sure it's working. And then we'll put it back on the Timegrapher, because right here, hold on, I'll tell you. Right there, I bumped one of the regulator arms on the balance, and I threw this off a little bit. But I spent a little bit more time and regulated this watch down even more. As you can see, the reversing wheels are working. If you look at the ratchet wheel here, you can see that it is winding in both directions. These are a lot easier to put in than they are take out right here. This is the last screw. You know, I started off talking really slow and quiet, and then ended up fast and loud. So, okay, so here's how we ended up. So this is after I regulated it again, after it was completely together, and this is how it's been running. This thing runs great, and it's been running for a week. You know, I don't actually know what the power reserve is on it, but it runs for several days. I just rewound it again today and let it keep running. But this thing, I mean, 0 seconds a day, amplitude, 0 seconds a day, beat. Let me get my thoughts here. 0 seconds a day. 0 seconds a day off. Amplitude was high, 280s. That's great, you know. 0 beat error, perfect, cool. Here's all the parts that came out of here and went back together. And here's how it came out. I actually did a sunburst style. Sorry about that. I actually did a sunburst style polish on this case after this video. But thanks.